We're going right into it. Locked and loaded, ladies and gentlemen. Get the autists in here right now. Bring me back my autists. Autism. The autists, the missile autists rejoice. It's time for situation monitoring. And it's a tough one to monitor, partially because there's a lot of fog of war this time around, because I think the American side has established that it's not great when they keep allowing impact sites to be plastered all over OSINT Twitter. And this time around, I have to apologize for something I said yesterday. Remember yesterday when we were talking about Saudi Arabia, and I said at least Saudi Arabia is not bombing Yemen? Well, that changed, because Saudi Arabia, as of maybe 3 or 4 hours after I said that, did unironically bomb the fucking airport in Sana'a. So Saudi Arabia is now bombing Yemen. So there's a tit for tat there as well. This time we're going to see some motion from the Houthis. Obviously, the MOU is over. The ceasefire is over. Iran has made it very clear that their understanding of the memorandum of understanding is... That's crazy. Iran's memorandum of understanding maintains some level of control in the hands of Iran over the Strait of Hormuz. This is tremendous leverage that they were not going to give up. Obviously, they won it militarily. And yet, the United States of America clearly was simply using this memorandum of understanding for a moment of respite for their strategic oil reserves and to normalize the oil markets a little bit. Kaya, come here. What the hell? What the hell, Kaya? Kaya's so funny. She'll open the door, she'll leave, and then immediately come back in. And I think right now it's just more so the process of opening the door that she enjoys. Like, she's just like, I have this power. I can wield it in my hands in any way, shape, or form that I see fit. But yes, as I was saying, so memorandum of understanding turned into a memorandum of misunderstanding, or rather, it was by design supposed to be a misunderstanding. The United States of America got very frustrated when Iran maintained its position as the sole controller of the ships that transit through the Strait of Hormuz. They had said to the Americans that they would allow all ships to transit as long as they still went through the preordained, pre-designated routes. America pressured the Omani government and the Omani leadership to allow ships to go through the Omani route, the Omani coastline. And of course, in retaliation for that, the Iranians started opening fire on the ships that were passing through the Omani coastline. This stopped the transiting of the Strait of Hormuz. The ships from transiting in the Strait of Hormuz, it turned the clock back. The strait is still closed. As of yesterday, now Donald Trump is, or as of early this morning, Donald Trump has decided to re-implement his blockade. We're going to get to that in a second. But yes, there's tit for tat, fresh strikes. Iran has been dishing it out to the Gulf countries, but even Jordan as well, according to some reports, as the United States of America is pummeling Iran to the best of its ability. So we're back to Operation Epstein's Fury, okay?
Overnight, a new round of...
Oh my God, why is it so... Oh, I didn't realize I had cranked this shit up.
As the ceasefire unravels, the renewed hostilities are creating uncertainty over the Strait of Hormuz, with Iran claiming it's closed while the Trump administration says it's open. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is at the White House with the latest for us. Good morning to you, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. And it has now been nearly a month.
Lol, yeah. Far-left streamer HasanAbi calls Lindsey Graham a bloodthirsty, odious monster. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Play my highlight reel, bitch. I don't give a shit. Yeah, where is the lie, man? I can't wait for this to be the the day's conversation, people being like, wow, I can't believe he said that. Okay, address the point at hand, please. Address the point at hand then. Is he not? Explain to me why that's not the case. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Since President Trump signed that short-term peace agreement with Iran, but after days of back and forth strikes, as you said, the ceasefire is now unraveling. The Iranians this morning say the agreement has, quote, entered a crisis stage. Now, overnight, the U.S. launching a new round of strikes against Iran, the fourth series of attacks in less than a week. Iran then responding with a barrage of strikes aimed at American military assets in the Middle East. Now, these fresh attacks are coming amid mixed messages about the Strait of Hormuz. After targeting commercial ships in the critical waterway for days, Iran declaring it's closing the Strait of Hormuz. But President Trump says that's not the case. He insists that it is open. Reopening the strait, of course, was at the heart of this memorandum of understanding that was intended to...
I like that yesterday he was saying, no, you don't understand. The Strait of Hormuz is open. And today he's decided, actually, just kidding, it's not open. I don't know why I said that. As a matter of fact, we closed it. We're back. We're so back. We're so back, dude. We're so fucking back. Yeah.
Buy more time to negotiate a longer-term lasting nuclear deal. The issue...
Trump toes a cuck test for all U.S. allies. I mean, yeah, they are. Everyone is cucked to American interests. So it's just, it's not surprising.
At the heart of this conflict, but the two sides haven't even been able to get to that point amid these escalating back and forth strikes, Robin.
And Mary, how is this affecting gas prices back at home?
Yeah, well, certainly all of these strikes are moving oil prices up as we are seeing traffic stalled through the Strait of Hormuz and slowing down. This morning, oil prices moving higher about 3%, and Americans are starting to see the effects of this. They're feeling this. The average gallon of gas now $3.81. That's up 9 cents, Robin, since last week.
All right. Our thanks to you, Mary.
Now to breaking news from the Middle East, where the U.S. and Iran are once again trading attacks. It's the latest sign the ceasefire is crumbling. At issue here, who controls the Strait of Hormuz, and a difference of opinion about what's in the truce agreement. Weijia Jiang is at the White House. Weijia, good morning.
Jolene, good morning to you and good morning to everybody. The U.S. says this latest wave of attacks were in response to Iranian aggression, but Iran has condemned the strikes and warned they have made all the recent diplomatic efforts futile. Now concerns are growing that there will be a return to full-scale hostilities.
The fight to control traffic in the Strait of Hormuz.
Has media completely given up? I mean, when had they given in? Also, this is ZBS. When it comes to foreign policy, the American media, the Democratic Party, for the most part, play along with whatever the Republicans are doing. At most, there's like a little bit of theatrics. There's a little bit of pushback. It's oftentimes insignificant pushback, inconsequential pushback. It's just theater. And the media is very happy to trot along with whatever the United States government or whatever the Pentagon has decided to do, whatever the State Department has decided to do. It's not, these guys all serve the interests of capital. So it's not going to be all that different. There's a reason why, even when it comes to Israel, for example, again, prominent fixture of American foreign policy in the region, most of these outlets have fallen short of doing basic reporting, basic journalism. There's a reason for it. But yeah, Donald Trump is back at it. He sent a letter to Congress. New York Times reports Trump informed Congress that fighting has resumed in Iran in a letter sent to congressional leaders. So we shall see. But how does this serve capital? Isn't it sexual assault on money beyond molesting? Yes, I think so. But there are clearly those who place a higher priority on the destruction, the permanent destruction of Iran, and I guess believe that Donald Trump going back to war with Iran is somehow looping back into the interests of the State Department, the interests of Israel, and therefore the interests of the State Department, or at least a faction within the American State Department. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what kind of response they mount against this. Hasan, isn't war bad? Yes, it's very bad.
Is escalating. The U.S. announced it unleashed fresh attacks on dozens of Iranian targets, including small boats and drones, to limit Iran's ability to go after commercial ships going through the crucial shipping channel. In response, Iran says it launched missiles targeting U.S. bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan, and destroyed radar systems in Oman. The U.S. has yet to confirm if anything was hit. The strikes capped a violent weekend of back-and-forth attacks. The Pentagon says it struck more than 140 military targets Saturday in response to another Iranian attack on a vessel in the Strait. During a phone interview with NBC News on Sunday, President Trump claimed the Strait remains open.
It's open. We bombed the hell out of them last night.
But Iran declared the Strait closed, posting that passage, quote, is currently not possible because of recent illegal movements by U.S. military forces in the region. It's not the only point of contention, according to Trump.
They agreed to a deal yesterday, a perfect deal for us. No nuclear, no this, no that, no nothing. They gave up everything. And then after that, they left the room. And then within an hour, they launched a drone at a ship.
Iran has not confirmed they agreed to anything during crisis talks in Oman this weekend. Former commander of the U.S. Central Command, retired General Frank McKenzie, said the U.S. has the capability to take control of the Strait if tensions worsen.
It would require putting warships up into narrow waters. Look, the U.S. Navy doesn't love to do that, but they're very good.
Retired General Frank McKenzie, we listened to his analysis yesterday. A thing that I did not understand about what the retired General Frank McKenzie was saying, the good general, was why didn't we do that prior? If all we're looking for is leverage, if this is an easily achievable feat, if the American Navy, as it stands currently, can with ease take over Carg Island, and then maintain control over Carg Island by establishing a forward operating base and withstand bombing campaigns from the IRGC in the process. And then also on top of that, establish a supply line to the front lines, to the forward operating base from one of the many bases in the region that hasn't been cratered or isn't within reach of Iranian ballistic munitions. If that was a feasible strategy, why didn't Trump do it last time? Why? There is no answer to this question. It's a very simple question. It's like saying, oh, dude, I could have just fucked Iran up, dude. It was easy as hell. Why not then? You cannot strategize and conduct foreign policy and military warfare with a hope and a dream. This kind of posturing would have been more effective if the Trump administration hadn't, by way of getting goaded into this through Israel, waged war with Iran and then lost. I'm telling you right now, 200 days ago, the United States of America had tremendous force projection capabilities. It no longer has the same force projection capabilities. It no longer has the same confidence. It no longer, when America now says, oh, we'll come after you, we'll destroy you, you better act right, it doesn't have the same emphasis. It doesn't have the same power. It doesn't have the same threat. It's very stupid to go on, face the nation, and be like, this thing that we could have done and should have done, if it's so easy to do, we should have done it. That thing, we're just going to do it now. We didn't do it for the last 200 days, but we're going to do it this time around. Very stupid. Who is this for? All you're doing is ironically enough, going against the interests of your current generals who are probably telling Trump it's not going to work. It didn't work last time. Don't be crazy, sir.
Good at it, and if necessary, they can do it, and they can do it well.
In the meantime, analysts warn gas prices could creep up again. While the current national average of $3.87 a gallon is below the peak of $4.50 in May, it's nearly $1 more than the price was before the war started. Gail.
Oh, boy, we should thank you.
All right, let's hear what Al Jazeera is saying. Trump says U.S. to reinstate Iran blockade and impose 20% shipping fee. So once again, Donald Trump has gone back to the most insane thing that he did. Because remember, if the ultimate goal here is to open the Strait of Hormuz, it was open. If the reason for why we have to open the Strait of Hormuz is an imminent energy crisis for the rest of the globe and potentially for the United States of America, if we're hitting the red line, if we're hitting the hard limit in our strategic oil reserves, and that's the reason why we had to do the MOU to begin with, instead of continuing this back and forth, continuing this war, continuing the double blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. If that was the reason why we went to the bargaining table and tried to, create a brief moment of respite, then what changed now? All you're doing is pushing the can down the road. That's all the Trump administration is doing. And it's kind of crazy that a lot of people, it's kind of crazy that smart, intelligent analysts are not just seeing it for what it is. Or perhaps they do see it, but they also serve a secondary purpose here, which is to abide by the interests of Israel. And Israel's interests are very clear here. They want to continue destabilizing Iran. They want to continue blowing up Iran because Iran is a sovereign power in the region that is capable of striking back against Israel. And that thwarts the greater Israel project that these guys are invested in. But Donald Trump has come out and once again decided the Hormuz Strait is open and will remain open with or without Iran. We are reinstating the Iranian blockade, so named because it is only stopping Iran ships or customers from entering or leaving. All other countries will have fair and open use of the strait. The USA will be, from this point forward, known as the guardian of the Hormuz Strait. But as such, and as a matter of fairness, will be reimbursed at a rate of 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security for this very volatile section of the world. The process of formation will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So not only is Donald Trump implementing the secondary blockade over the Iranian one once again, he's also lying about the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is open while simultaneously saying it's closed. But now he also wants 20%, which is 10 times higher than the Iranian toll charge was. What the hell is this guy doing? He literally just established a toll. He legitimized the process of establishing a toll. Now, Iran can just go back and be like, hey guys, they want 20%. They don't even live here. We live here. We just want 2%. Art of the deal, baby. Art of the deal. Incredible stuff. What do you say to that? How do you deal with a guy who is such an avowed rapist that he wants to molest the money at this point? The one thing that American capital will not let you molest is supposed to be the money. And he's out here molesting it. He loves molesting. He loves molestation, including molesting the bag. What do you do?
Bring some breaking news now. The US President Donald Trump has just posted on social media that he is reinstating the US blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Let's go over to Rosalind Jordan at the White House. Quite a significant statement. And he's also had something to say about tolls. Take us through that.
Well, I'm going to read from part of the Truth Social post that the U.S. president just put on his personal social media account, and I'm quoting, "We are reinstating in all capital letters the Iranian blockade, so named because it is only stopping Iran's ships or customers from entering or leaving," and that implies the Strait of Hormuz. All other countries will have fair and open use of the strait. The USA will be, from this point forward, known as the, quote, guardian of the Hormuz Strait. But as such, and as a matter of, in capital letters, fairness, we will be reimbursed at the rate of 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security to this very volatile section of the world. The process and formation will begin immediately. Now, we don't have any more details on what the process and formation will be, but recall that earlier in the war between the U.S. and Iran, the president ordered the U.S. Navy to impose a blockade on all Iranian shipping through the strait. We don't know whether the U.S. Military is currently configured in order to be able to carry out a blockade. It has been providing some escort work for commercial ships going through the Strait of Hormuz because there are mines at the bottom of the strait, and clearly there is no desire to have these commercial vessels blown up by these mines. But again, the U.S. President Donald Trump is announcing that this U.S. Blockade of Iranian shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is going to resume.
This feels like we have a petulant child as president. I don't think this was concocted by a group of analysts. I'll be honest. I don't think this was like the FDD guys being like, we should just take what the Iranians are doing and then just like up the ante and do it to everybody else. Like, I know I said it feels like we are being led by a petulant child. But there are obviously still supposed to be adults in the room. You know what I mean? There's supposed to be adults in the room that say, hey, Mr. President, that seems like a fucking stupid idea. Like even the FDD guys, the NATO Atlanticists obviously have pulled out of this, right? The neocons have pulled out of this. The last bastion of pro-war, like the only pro-war faction at this point that remains in the think tank orbit is FDD and AIPAC, right? It's just like the Israeli lobby. That's it. And of course, the Israeli lobby still has tremendous power. We know this, right? But this argument, this concept, the double blockade, it feels like it just is coming from Trump and Trump only because it is the work of a child with a child's brain. Okay? Because if the goal is to open the Strait of Hormuz and allow vessels to transit with ease, yeah, this is also strange because it's vague and not as usual first-person style. President Trump will be making a speech to the nation on Thursday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's funny how Trump's every attempted countermeasure is a dumb ripoff of IRI policy. Iran blockades the Strait of Hormuz. Trump blockades the Gulf of Oman. Iran charges fees in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump, defender of open seas, announced an even bigger fee, the biggest fee ever. Yeah, it's like a child. This is what a child does. Okay? This is the most childish. It's not the most violent American foreign policy has ever been, even though it's getting up there. But this is certainly the most childish American foreign policy has ever been. And I think it's because Donald Trump is holding the entire government and all of its different vestiges hostage right now. No one can say anything. No one can do anything. We're just kind of trailing along to see how bad it will get. Of course, Sayed Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran, turned around and responded with a pretty solid approach. He said, POTUS is absolutely right. Whoever provides secure and safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz should be compensated for this service. Iran has always been the guardian of the Strait and will remain so forever. 20%, of course, is too much. We will be fair.
We imagine later on Monday.
Rosalind, this is quite a significant change of U.S. policy, right? What the U.S. president had been saying on June 20th was there will be no tolls or fees for 60 days. What he said on May 29th was more indicative of no tolls and unrestricted traffic. And now talk of a U.S. imposition of some kind of fee.
Well, let's unpack this a bit. As part of the memorandum of understanding, as I understand it, there was not supposed to be any more blockade carried out by the U.S. Navy, and that apparently stopped the minute the two countries agreed to this memorandum of understanding. That said, the U.S. military has been providing some escort services to commercial vessels because the strait has not been fully cleared of mines, and so there is that safety risk. But in terms of preventing Iranian vessels or company or vessels doing business with Iran, whether it's the government or businesses, that was not being carried out because that was a part of the MOU. Does that mean, with the president's latest announcement, that the memorandum of understanding is now null and void, or is the U.S. violating the memorandum of understanding? All of these questions need to be sorted out because this is only creating more confusion on the status of the MOU, which was supposed to be the 60-day period for the U.S. and Iran to figure out how to move from a ceasefire to a permanent end to their war. There's also this question about whether the U.S. can legally impose any tariffs on countries that it is assisting throughout this process, because another part of the MOU was the Iranians would not charge any vessels for transiting the strait for the 60 days of the MOU, implying that the Iranians would be able to then charge tolls or tariffs after that 60-day period. These are questions that need to be sorted out, that both governments need to try to explain, try to renegotiate if they are willing to renegotiate at this point. This is all just coming out in probably the last 7 to 8 minutes or so. So there are a lot of questions that we just can't clarify at this point.
On the verge of asking you to clarify the unclarifiable, Rosalind, but is there...
And there it is. U.S. has directly struck Karg Island oil infrastructure, Western Jetty pumping station, and the pipelines. First confirmed hit on Iran's core export terminal. Fires visible via satellite. That's from 9 hours ago. Hasan, no, it's not. Oh, it was a flare-up? Okay. I thought I read it that it was flares. Okay. I'll look into that. But one of the reasons why this is a major problem. It could be misinformation. It could be real. Okay. Listen. If they start striking Karg Island, if they start striking critical oil and gas infrastructure, Iran is going to retaliate in kind. And then the problem is no longer just going to be about reopening the Strait of Hormuz by military force through, naval vessels or naval assets combating the Iranian Navy, or what remains of the Iranian Navy, or striking at all of the different launching platforms that exist for all these different drones that they're lobbing in the direction of the commercial ships that are trying to transit through the Strait of Hormuz or the Omani coastline. The problem becomes far larger because Iran has shown over and over again that they will go up the escalation ladder. If you hit their critical oil and gas infrastructure, they will hit the Saudi oil and gas infrastructure. They will hit the Gulf oil and gas infrastructure. That creates a permanent issue. That is no longer an issue that you can deal with through the diplomatic process. Okay? You can no longer deal with that through diplomacy, because even if you were to get back to diplomacy with Iran somehow, after all of this is said and done, the repairs are still going to take a tremendously long time. It's not like that is a red line that if Donald Trump crosses, he won't be able to negotiate his way out of. Which is precisely the reason why it's one that I suspect he might cross soon. Now, it's not like this hasn't happened already. This has happened. Okay? This, like, the Iranian oil infrastructure has been hit in the past. Refineries have been hit in the last 120-day tit-for-tat Strait of Hormuz, crisis. Incorrect. This is a regular gas flaring. For reference, here's what it looked like. Okay, so they're saying that it's not true. The fires shown on NASA firms at Carg Island are routine gas flaring from oil infrastructure. Okay, thank God. But here's the thing. America has already struck Carg Island before. They have spared the oil and gas infrastructure in Carg Island. America and Israel have struck different parts of the refining capabilities inside of Iran. Okay? And Iran has retaliated in kind. They actually, I'm almost certain, if I recall correctly, Iran actually basically canceled a decent chunk of the Qatari gas fields. They struck back on critical oil and gas infrastructure in the Gulf, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, something that we've found out in this process is jet fuel can't melt steel beams, and even Iranian ballistic missiles have a difficult time destroying a critical oil and gas infrastructure. These are pretty resilient. These are fairly resilient structures that aren't easy to just destroy. It doesn't immediately collapse, is what I'm saying. And the same goes for the Russian one. The same goes for what we've seen in Ukraine. It's the same story over and over again. In inside of Iran, it's the same as well. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a significant threat. Hunter Biden and Nick Fuentes sit down for a joint interview with Channel 5 podcast TMZ. What the fuck? It's insane. I don't agree with that. I think that's lame as fuck. That's weird as hell.
Any indication from any U.S. quarter about how this new system of imposing a 20% fee is going to work? I mean, Donald Trump's post talks about it as starting immediately.
We haven't gotten any reaction from any members of Congress, for example. This is just coming out. We have not heard from any economic analysts or any geopolitical analysts taking a look at this. There had been concern over the past weekend or so that the status of the MOU was in serious jeopardy, but there were also signs that intermediaries, Pakistan, Qatar, Oman, other countries, were still working to keep the parties at the table and to try to continue negotiating the terms for a permanent end to the war. So this is all just happening in the last few minutes, and it is raising a lot of questions about whether or not the MOU is still viable, is still in force. We don't even know what the Iranian response is yet, but clearly Iranian officials had been saying earlier on Monday that they were blaming the U.S. for this latest round of tension in the Strait, and that the U.S. was basically destabilizing the global energy markets by its actions. So we really don't know yet what is going to happen to the MOU, whether we're about to see a resumption of warfare between the two countries, or whether things can be clawed back again and try to.
Oh my God. The monkey Putin turned into monkey Trump is perfect. It works so perfect for Trump, even more perfect than Vladimir Putin, if we're being real. I mean, this what can I even say about this image? This is literally what's just fucking happening right now. It's happening currently. Not only was it free prior to Operation Epstein Fury, but now it's no longer free. But it's ironic because on the one hand, Donald Trump is saying 20% and Iran is saying 2%. I can't understand what this guy is doing. It feels like he's trying to make the Iranians look good every day. It's literally JD Pandan. Because if you're an international shipper, if you're engaging if you're one of these companies that controls the oil tankers, you're going to look at the situation and be like, okay, so Iran is just objectively better. Yes, dude, I'm going to talk about ICE killing someone in Maine this morning. Holy fuck, dude. Yes, I'm going to talk about it, okay? Yes, dude. Yes. Yes. I'm going to talk about it, okay? Whack-a-drone doesn't work. The force currently deployed to the region is around half of the USN's deployed assets, including 2 CSGs, and has significant support from ground-based AD, air defense, and yet Iran has struck around half a dozen commercial vessels in the past few days. If that force is incapable of protecting shipping from drones, no force on Earth is. The position is checkmate. The rest of the war is mostly a distraction. The current U.S. strategy, drone warfare is far too cheap and far too easy, okay? It's like these drone launchers operate in a very fluid way. They're very movable. It's tough to target. It's mostly ineffective because the drones are being launched off of the backs of K trucks that are super easy to rebuild, even if they do get struck, which is part of the reason why America and Israel doesn't even try to hit the TELs at all. Like these launchers are basically soldered together. Okay. So they gave up doing it because the war of attrition is a game of math. Okay. You're looking at the economy of the situation. From the American and the Israeli perspective, you're sending out a loitering drone, like an MQ-9 Reaper drone, to surveil an area to try to figure out if there's a heat pattern, that's consistent with like a super cheap drone launcher on the Iranian side. Sorry. Here's how it goes. From the Iranian perspective, they wheel out they wheel out a drone launcher off the back of a pickup truck or off the back of a K truck. That's fairly easy. The launching platform is fairly cheap to make. The drones themselves are fairly cheap to make as well. They wheel out this launching platform from a cave system. Okay. America, in order to figure out where these drones are being launched from, because the most effective way to stop these drones from being launched is by deteriorating or attriting their strike capabilities by hitting the launchers, right? And under normal circumstances, those big ballistic munitions, like those have a fairly sophisticated launching platform. They're big trucks. They're very expensive. They're very costly. There's no indigenous version of it. You have to purchase it from all these other countries, right? Like, so same with the anti-air defense systems that you get, like the S-300, S-400. But these drones are super cheap to make. Now, here's the issue. The cheapest way to try and target the TELs that are super easy to recreate, super easy to repair, is by sending out drones that loiter, like the MQ-9 Reaper drones. Okay, they sit around and they wait for a heat pattern, and they try to identify if there's if there is even a drone launch taking place. The MQ-9s are $30 million a pop. The MQ-9 drones that would strike at one of these TELs are far more costly to operate, and certainly far more costly when they're taken out. So on the balance sheet, every time Iran is lobbing like 100 Shahed drones, or 10 Shahed drones, or 20 Shahed drones, those Shahed drones are $7,000 a pop. The launching platform that they're using is even cheaper than the Shahed drones themselves. So if a MQ-9 Reaper drone is able to successfully take out a K truck, basically, the total cost on the Iranian side is marginal. But if Iran activates its anti-air defense systems, as they keep doing, they can potentially take out a $30 million piece of equipment. That's very expensive. And for the record, since Operation Epic Fury, Iran has been able to successfully take out almost 50 of these bad boys. Okay? It's unbelievably cost-effective for Iran to continue this posture, to maintain the war of attrition, because that is incredibly costly to the United States of America. It's incredibly costly to Israel, and it's very cheap for Iran to just wait it out. And it's not just the MQ-9s that the Iranians have been able to successfully take out. It's very clear that the United States and Israel have not been able to maintain air superiority over the Iranian airspace. There's a couple different reasons for it. Okay. Part of it is because Iran's topography makes it relatively difficult. The Iran's missile production facilities are inside of deep underground caves. All they can do is hopefully hit the entrance of a cave, but then inside of those tunnel systems, they have bulldozers. So what the Iranian side does is, if they actually have a successful strike that craters the entrance of one of these cave systems, well, they have a tunnel right there with a bunch of bulldozers waiting on the other side that will then dig themselves out. So America and Israel have demonstrably been ineffective at deteriorating or attriting the Iranian strike capabilities. The Iranian drone launcher capabilities have not been successfully diminished. The Iranian ballistic munitions strike capabilities have not been successfully destroyed. That much is clear, and it's not just my assessment at this point. The New York Times has reported on it. Wall Street Journal has reported on it. Financial Times has reported on it. So a lot of Western media have also gone to military analysts and asked them their perspective on it. They have far more information than I do, far more insider information from the American military side than I will ever have access to. I'm just simply looking at, the strikes that are ongoing, right? One famous example of the American missile stockpile as opposed to the Iranian missile strike capabilities is, of course, coming from CSIS, right? So this is a foregone conclusion at this point because we watched it unfold for the last 130 days. So the fact that America's going back to square one is very stupid, especially because while we got a moment of respite with our strategic reserves for like the last, week or 10 days or 2 weeks or so, when the MOU was being talked about, right? And oil tankers could cross through the Strait of Hormuz. That just gave us maximum 20 days. That gave the American side and the energy markets 20 days of respite. Okay, you push the problem 20 days into the future, but that problem still remains, especially because our burn rate is higher than our production. So inevitably, this is going to lead to crisis in Africa. It's going to lead to crisis in the Asian markets. There already is a crisis in the Asian energy markets. It's also going to make its way to Europe in more obvious ways, because right now you can kind of hide it a little bit. You can move some numbers around. There's the strategic reserves. But eventually, everyone is going to start running out. Blackouts in Africa, blackouts in Asia, blackouts in Europe, and then inevitably long lines for gas and an oil and gas crisis in the United States of America as well. So what do we do? If America has shown by attempting and failing to successfully militarily stop Iran and gain leverage once over, why would the situation be different now? If anything, it's worse for America now. The situation is worse for the United States of America and its allies than it was certainly prior to Operation Epstein's Fury, and even worse prior to the MOU being implemented and signed off on. So unless America has a shit or get off the pot moment and commits to a full-blown ground invasion of Iran, which, by the way, will not solve this problem and only exacerbate it, what do we do here? That's why Americanus is correct. Says the position is checkmate. The rest of the war is mostly a distraction. This person says, let's just say the U.S. and Iran are both serious about the Strait. It would require the U.S. to have a huge permanently deployed but not too close force to play whack-a-drone and whack-a-missile in perpetuity. The end result will be much less petroleum throughout the Strait, structurally higher shipping costs, ships getting hit at least monthly despite best efforts, and of course putting people in harm's way on a daily basis. I'm not sure how you spin that as a win if we're still here in 6 months or a year. Americana says, whack-a-drone doesn't work. The force currently deployed to the region is around half the USN's deployed assets, including 2 CSGs, and has significant support from ground-based air defenses. And yet Iran has struck around half a dozen commercial vessels in the past few days. If that force is incapable of protecting shipping from drones, no force on Earth is. That's the reality. Drone warfare is far too affordable, far too cheap, far too easy to manufacture, and far too effective in striking ships that are unguarded, but also even ships that have air defenses, right? That's the real problem. If the American Navy, with all of its assets in the region, can't successfully protect commercial shipping from Iranian drone strikes, then you can't do it. You have to deal with them diplomatically. They have the leverage. I thought Russian air defense was ass. Okay, here's the real truth, Nuke. Most air defense is ass when it comes to dealing with fucking drones. Okay? All air defense is ass when it comes to dealing with drones. I mean, look at Ukraine. I thought we learned that lesson by now. I thought that drone warfare revolutionized the entire concept of warfare, so much so that, I mean, Ukraine has started taking advantage of that themselves. But at the end of the day, it's just, you're not going to, like, how are you going to solve for it? I guess put nets on cargo ships. Eventually we'll get there. Yeah, yes, you can't. Yeah, you can't put nets on cargo ships. This is also, yeah, cope cages on cargo ships. Except, what are you going to do as far as cope cages on the bottom of the cargo ship? Because the drones aren't just aerial drones. They also have one-way attack drones that they can deploy by the water. It's like a fucking torpedo. What do you do in that situation? Where's the cope cage for that? This is before we even factor in fiber optic drones as well. Like, we got FPV drones that you know, Iran is not even deploying. I don't even know if they have a lot of them, but they're using these suicide drones for the most part. Shahid drones are too heavy for nets to be effective. Nets only work against light FPV. Footage of CENTCOM using a one-way USVs for the first time. Another innovation that was first used by Yemen is now being used by U.S. forces. Yep, that's another one. Here it is. Yesterday, using multiple one-way attack surface drones, CENTCOM force successfully struck a submarine ship and maintenance facility in Iran. 3 Corsair unmanned surface vessels hit the port at Bandar Abbas Naval Base, marking the first time American forces have employed these sea drones in combat operations. Last night's strikes degraded Iran's capability to continue attacking commercial shipping. To be clear, this was likely a photo op for psychological effect. They struck an empty dock using a bumbling and slow USV when they could have used anything else. These Corsairs cost $1 million apiece. Correction, there appears to be a sub on top of the dock, but it's unclear if it actually took it down. It was likely damaged at least. It's just crazy because Donald Trump keeps coming out and saying, we've obliterated the Iranian Navy. The IRGC's Navy is gone. Every other week. Every other week, there's, I guess, more Navy to destroy. And Trump keeps destroying the Navy. He's the most successful military commander America's ever had. He's the most peaceable American military commander as well. He's the one who brings about peace. After all, he's brought about peace to Iran, to the Strait of Hormuz, approximately 400 times. 3 times a day. He ended this war 1,000 times over. It's so crazy. It keeps restarting, but he keeps ending it. Very successful, Mr. President. Thank you so much. We love you. You are truly the peace president. You are truly the president that carries the peace. We love you and we respect you. Anyway, U.S. missile stockpiles under mounting strain as renewed attacks on Iran raise concerns over the future war readiness. So we already talked about the ineffectiveness of air defense systems in terms of protecting commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz because the drones are too effective. There's not really anything you can do. And therefore, the only thing you can do is just tell Iran, please stop doing this. We will come to the table. We will do a ceasefire negotiation. We give up, wave the white flag, right? That's the only time commercial shipping was unimpeded. At the time the Iranians resumed strikes on commercial vessels, the Bush and Lincoln groups were closer than they've ever been to the Strait. This was the test. If USN was capable of scoring a 100% interception rate on drones over transit, it would be with those assets in that position after 30,000 strikes on Iran. They failed. The current U.S. strategy is based around the idea that you can pull some lever to get the Iranians to give up this absolute advantage, a counter blockade, more standoff strikes, and additional abortive ground operations out of Kurdistan seems to be the only tools they have. There's no reason to think any of those will work. This was effortless to predict. The drone will always get through is a reasonable conclusion a casual observer could glean from watching the war in Ukraine. Exactly. The Russians do put up some impressive performances and have occasionally achieved 100% interception rates on drone waves, numbering in the hundreds. But this is because they have hundreds of miles of their own territory to shoot them down over. The geography of the Persian Gulf is a worst-case scenario for this. Not only is the topographical map unbelievably favorable to Iran because there's cave systems, there's tunnel systems inside of fucking mountains that they can launch these goddamn things from. The length of the trip from being launched through the Iranian mountainside to impact is far shorter than, hundreds of miles of terrain that a drone has to fly through. Now, of course, that's very different for Iran to start lobbing drones in the direction of Israel, for example, right? So unless America has a surefire way to strike at these TELs in the moment of release, the moment that these drones are being launched, which they don't, because every time they have these loitering Mark 9 drones, the Reaper drones that are flying over the Iranian airspace, the moment that these guys are even invested in striking at a TEL, they get struck back. These launching platforms are cheap. The MQ-9s are very costly. And Iran is very successful. Iran has seen a shit ton of success in striking these MQ-9 Reaper drones. So I just keep repeating over and over again. On the defensive side, they're failing. America's failing on the defense. You can't do anything. Okay? You cannot fight back against drone warfare as it stands currently with the current technological limitations. On the offensive side, the same problem still remains. On the offensive side, America is exhausting its standoff munitions. America has obviously developed and has stockpiled hundreds of ballistic munitions, Tomahawk missiles, and the like for peer and near-peer adversaries. Iran is not a near-peer adversary, at least technically. A near-peer adversary is Russia. A peer adversary is China. These are the countries that we have developed these stockpiles for. But because we have not been able to achieve air superiority over the Iranian airspace, we keep using our Tomahawk missiles because we can't strike, we can't deploy unguided and guided munitions, gravity bombs from airplanes, because if we fly over the Iranian airspace, Iran can pick some of our planes off, which they have done so successfully. This is the reason why we're exhausting our resources. We're exhausting our ballistic munitions against a middling power, a barely regional power like Iran. That is the power of drone warfare, folks. That's it. And it's also a testament to the Iranian ingenuity as far as their air defense systems. Like, they have been able to make the most out of their unbelievable limitations. Like, think about this. There's an international sanctions regime that they're operating within, and yet they are capable of building these crazy air defense systems, loitering munitions, what is it called? I forget what it's called, but they have a denial system and an air defense system that is clearly very successful, far more successful in its capabilities of thwarting American and Israeli airstrikes than you would expect. Yeah, they can create an area of denial in real time. No, it's not the S-400. No, the S-400 is costly. The S-400 is ineffective. It's costly and it's slow. Okay, that's not what we're talking about at all. As far as I understand, no S-400 has been utilized in taking out. No S-400 has been utilized in taking out American planes thus far. Iran, I believe, has S-300s regardless. I don't even know if they have S-400s. But the S-300s that they haven't really deployed either. Okay? They have mobile units. Just as they deploy mobile units for their easy, fast striking capabilities. S-400 is not ineffective, lol, what? It's one of the best air defenses in the world. Okay, chatter. I'm not a missile autist, but as far as I understand, Iran is not utilizing the S-400s or the S-300s because for the current predicament that they're in, the S-400 is a sitting duck. Okay? And I don't know I think initially in the first act of perfidy when Israel actually was quote unquote negotiating with Iran, not Operation Epstein Fury, but the one prior, the 12-day war. What Israel was capable of doing was, because these air defense systems are immobile for the most part in comparison to what's necessary, what Iran is currently using, they blew them up with drones. They built a drone facility inside of Tehran. Mossad did this. They built a drone facility inside of Tehran, and those drones blew up the existing, rather immobile S-300s that Iran already had. This caught Iran by surprise. Iran then went back and very quickly developed a newer, more mobile system. Allegedly, no evidence of that happening, by the way. That's cope. That's cope. There is evidence of that happening. That's like saying there's no evidence of the Bahrain base being cratered or something. Like, there is evidence. They did that. Not only did they definitely do that, Iran very publicly seized the drone factory. I remember watching the news reports on Iranian state television. Is Trump addressing the nation later? No, he's addressing the nation on Thursday. Anyway, CNN reported on. So we talked about America's limitations on air defenses, its limitations on protecting shipping, commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz with its navy, with its naval assets. But now there's the other side of the story. America also has a limitation in its striking capabilities. CNN reported on the 12th of July that key U.S. weapons stockpiles remain significantly depleted following months of war with Iran, with experts warning that continued operations at current rates could undermine Washington's ability to partake in future wars, particularly in the Indo-Pacific and on the Korean Peninsula. President Donald Trump said on Friday that the ceasefire with Iran was over, raising concerns over further missile expenditures. According to a CSIS analysis cited by CNN, by the end of the full-scale war in April, the Pentagon had expended at least half of its THAAD ballistic missile interceptors, nearly half of its Patriot interceptors, and around 30% of its Tomahawk land attack missiles. Analysts and former officials told CNN there's no doubt U.S. stockpiles are now below preferred levels, with rebuilding inventories expected to take years. Rokana today? No, you missed it. I had him on yesterday. Replenishment rates remain limited, with the Pentagon currently receiving only 15 Tomahawk missiles and 20 Patriot interceptors per month, while no THAAD deliveries are forecast for 2026. Experts estimate it could take more than 3 years to restore inventories to pre-war levels, while broader munitions replenishment timelines are expected to range from 2 to 5 years. CNN also reported that Congress has yet to approve any dedicated funding to replace missiles expended during the war. While the Pentagon insists the U.S. military retains sufficient capabilities to protect its interests, analysts warn that prolonged operations against Iran could gradually erode deterrence against such rivals as China and North Korea. That already happened, by the way. That already happened. Although the Trump administration has invoked the Defense Production Act and sought to expand missile production capacity, experts caution that increasing manufacturing output and establishing additional production lines remains a slow process that may not alleviate short-term shortages. Finally, you're the only one talking about this. Interceptors are important, but America has no standoff offensive munitions. American air doctrines assumes they will use standoff munitions to obtain air superiority or supremacy, allow free range for stealth. That assumption, which underpins American air power, was false, and the consequences will reach far beyond this conflict. Yes. It's not necessarily false. It's just designed for a different type of warfare. It's outdated. It's that simple. The idea that you can deploy your standoff munitions to successfully destroy the anti-air defense systems of a foreign power that you're fighting against, that has been thoroughly dismantled and destroyed by the Iranian air defense and the Iranian area of denial system that they have that's very mobile. Okay. Yeah, this is Iran's $100,000 missile destroying $1.5 billion of U.S. equipment. Iran's 358 and 359 missiles are its secret weapons when it comes to shooting down U.S. drones and have potentially damaged one of its stealthiest aircraft as well. America lost 24 MQ-9 Reaper drones during the Iran war, worth $720 million, in addition to 13 lost over Yemen during the fighting there in 2025. The 358 and 359 missiles are thought to be largely responsible. Iran has also managed to hit an F-35 fighter jet, with suggestions these missiles were also involved. The greatest copium here is that it actually downed the F-35 fighter jet. It's just, it didn't down it over Iranian airspace, so they're not counting it as a downing. It had to do a forced landing. It had to do a crash landing. They downed it, okay? Again, huge blow to American military doctrine, huge blow to American air superiority military doctrine, huge blow to the confidence that America should have in terms of its last-gen fighter jets. That's not supposed to happen.
What we're looking at here is an Iranian 359 missile. This secret weapon and a very similar version called the 358 are thought to be behind the loss of $1 billion worth of US kit during the Iran war. There are even rumors that one managed to hit an F-35 fighter, one of the most advanced jets ever created. That's because there's more to these missiles than meets the eye. So, what exactly makes them so special, and why are they proving so deadly? We're going to break down how they're put together and
USA flew 13,000 missions over Iran. They actually downed only one F-15 over the Iranian mainland. Dog. They could fly 100,000 missions over Iran. First of all, I dispute those numbers. but they could fly 100,000 missions over Iran. If Iran is still successfully blowing up Bahrain, blowing up Qatar, blowing up Saudi Arabia, and American military bases everywhere, who gives a fuck how many missions that they had? Especially when on the other side, clearly their most successful strikes have not come from whatever flight missions that you're greatly boosting. I assume this also is the drones as well. Iran is massive territory, for the record. That's part of the reason why you can fly over Iranian airspace, but you can't actually maintain air superiority. But at the end of the day, if you are not successfully attriting Iranian strike capabilities, then it doesn't fucking matter if you're able to fly over. And the fact that they were capable of taking out numerous MQ-9 Reaper drones and also an F-35 over Iranian airspace, which unfolded in real time and we all watched it happen, that's a huge deal. That's a fucking huge deal. It's pure cope to say, hey, man, they only downed one F-15. Okay. They downed one F-15 over the Iranian airspace, which was a massive deal, obviously. But they've downed more F-15s in the process. They've downed a F-35 in the process, just not over Iranian airspace. So I guess it doesn't count. That was my argument.
Let's take a look at footage of them in action to find out. Here are the 358 and 359 missiles. Those are designator numbers given to these secret weapons by the US when it uncovered them. There's lots.
Yeah, false. They stopped flying over Iran for the most part after the F-35 shoot down and switched to blasting from B-52s flying from the UK. When stocks ran low, they switched back to F-15s because stealth is irrelevant and F-15s are better if stealth isn't a game changer, and got shot down immediately. But the very fact that, yeah, they've hit numerous refueling planes. Here's the problem, okay? There's a lot of it. There are a lot of problems with this operation, okay? Number one, you cannot fly American fighter jets from a comfortable distance. So if you want to do bombing missions over Iranian airspace, you have to literally chain stratotankers together. Half the time they're flying all the way from the UK. Okay? That's a huge deal. Because you can't use the Saudi airspace, you can't use, and sometimes they try to use it, right? Like obviously Kuwait was a big deal, partially because that led to that, triple strike from that one Kuwaiti guy, the ghost of Kuwait or whatever. But like, you can't kickstart these bombing missions from a comfortable distance, so you need numerous stratotankers to basically chain refuel to bring your fucking big bomber planes all the way from the UK, because those planes are not safe in the Gulf. They're just not safe in the Gulf. Okay? They're relatively safe in Tel Aviv. The stratotankers are, but they're not safe when they're in the air. That's part of the reason why Iran is capable of taking out those stratotankers. Sometimes they're taking out those stratotankers at the Saudi air bases, as we've seen. Okay? That's a problem. That limits your strike capabilities, especially when you have a lot of guided and unguided munitions, right? You have gravity bombs that you could just drop over Iranian airspace, but now you can't actually get the comfortable distance. Yeah, they've also hit multiple AWACS, which there's no replacement for. Those are insanely costly. Like the total cost to the American military of this 140-day quagmire has been insurmountable, okay? It is tremendous. And then they have this crazy air defense system that they've deployed.
We don't know about them, but the facts and figures we do know are as follows. The 358 is the smaller of the two, around 9 foot long. It weighs an estimated 110 pounds, with a warhead that weighs approximately 22 pounds. It has a range of around 60 miles, and its speed is estimated at around 400 miles per hour. The 359 is around twice the size, though we don't have exact measurements for it. It has a range of 100 miles, can fly up to 30,000 feet, and hit speeds of more than 600 miles per hour. How much do they cost? The 358 is thought to be worth tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands of dollars. The 359 almost certainly costs more, but how much more? We can't say for sure. Now, let's get into the specifics. First, the 358. The missile is broadly broken down into two sections: the guidance and weapons section at the front and the propulsion section at the rear. Let's start our tour at the back with the turbojet engine. This is thought to be copied from a Dutch company called AMT, which makes a small jet engine for use in model planes. To either side of the engine, you've got stabilizing fins, which help keep the missile flying straight through the air. Then, in front of those and inside the body of the 358 is the fuel. Missiles typically use solid fuel, but this is thought to use liquid kerosene jet fuel. In the center of the missile are more large stabilizing fins. Again, these keep the missile stable in the air. Then we get to the guidance and weapons section. Immediately in front of the central stabilizers is a data link section with an aerial. This means that a pilot can stay connected to the missile while it is in flight and see what it sees. This is more common on a drone and hints at this weapon's unique feature, which we'll discuss more in just a moment. In front of that is a gyroscope and satellite navigation system. These keep the drone pointing the right way up and tell it where to go in case the pilot loses contact. Then there's another set of fins. These aren't stabilizers, but canards. They twist side to side to steer the missile in flight. Again, more about that in just a moment. In front of those is the warhead. This is high explosive fragmentation and designed to shred targets with shrapnel. Second to last, we have a ring of cameras around the top of the missile, which are thought to be part of the fuse. They sense when the missile is close to its target and detonate it. Then, last of all, there's an infrared seeker in the nose. This is also referred to as a heat seeker. This is how the missile homes in on its target. Again, more on that in just a second. The 359 is very similar in its construction, with just a few key differences. At the back, it has a larger and more powerful turbojet engine. This time thought to be a copy of a Czech design. There are no rear stabilizing fins, but the large central stabilizers have been moved towards the back of the missile. And, unlike the central stabilizers on the smaller version, these have flaps on the rear edge that can be used to help steer in the air. In the midsection of the missile, alongside the fuel tank, is a parachute which can be deployed through a hatch. This is so the missile can be recovered if it fails to hit a target. Again, not a typical feature of a missile, and another hint at its secret skill. In front of that, you've got all the same guidance kit you'll find in the smaller version, along with the canards which provide additional steering. And then the warhead, thought to be much larger than in the 358, though we don't have an exact figure. And the IR seeker in the nose. Each of these missiles is also fitted with a much smaller rocket motor underneath the main body, which is used just for takeoff. Once in the air, this drops away and the main motor takes over. Go back to the tapes.
Nation of autistic engineer chuds, dude. If you're confused by this process, if you're like, how the fuck did they get this done? I mean, they're nerds, dude. They're nerds. They love reading the Quran and they love doing engineering.
Then we can see everything I was just talking about. This is the 359, the larger missile sitting on its launcher. The launcher is a simple rail mounted on the back of a truck that has been covered with camo netting. Down here, you can see the launch motor, which will drop away when it's in the air. Here's the large stabilizers, and you can see the flaps built into their rear edge. And here's the smaller canards at the front, which can twist back and forth. You can see the glass dome on the nose, which hides the IR seeker underneath. And from the back, you can see that large turbojet engine, which powers it in
Kai
flight.
said, I'm done.
Now,
I'm done. I'm done seeing the Iranian capabilities. I'm out.
let's take a look at the 358. This footage isn't so good, but some features are still visible. Here's the launcher, another truck. but this time there's 2 missiles inside with space between them. You can see a set of canards at the front, the lenses for the laser fuse, and the IR seeker in the nose. You can see it's mounted on a rail again, and the central set of stabilizing fins can be seen here. If we zoom out, you can see how it launches.
The Kayatola is on her way to kill whoever leaked this. Yeah. She's pissed off. She played a big role in making these two. It's true. I told you guys, she's literally a Marxist-Leninist Maoist and also a Shia Muslim. Like, she is a commander of the Revolutionary Guard.
Think the smaller rocket motor drops away here, where the trail of smoke stops. So, what exactly is the party trick of these 2 missiles that makes them so deadly? Well,
is it true Iran's copying the Tomahawks that failed to explode? Breaking Iran shot down a Tomahawk cruise missile overnight. Iranian air defenses are improving.
Looks can be deceiving, because these 2 aren't strictly missiles at all. They're what's called loitering munitions. In plain English, they're like a mixture between a drone and a missile. What they do is take off from their launcher, fly to a predetermined location, and then start flying in a giant figure of 8 pattern.
Yeah, like John Fetterman. Israel's figure 8 drones are John Fetterman. The Iranians are obviously much more sophisticated.
They're loitering.
As far as I understand, John Fetterman has yet to take out any American asset or any foreign asset that's worth $30 million, whereas these guys are picking even the $1 trillion F-35. So
waiting for a target to find them rather than going to find a target. While loitering, that IR seeker we already talked about is scanning the skies for infrared signatures. That's the heat signature that enemy drones, helicopters, and jets make when compared to the much cooler air around them. When it recognizes one of those targets, which have to be programmed into it before...
The military's just full of bloat. Oh, is this the one? Yeah. It makes a little more sense when you see how huge it is. It's got a greater wingspan than a 737. The other big factor was them deciding to cut the production run by a third, which more or less doubled the cost of each unit because R&D costs are amortized over fewer airframes. Huge mess. Iran most likely destroyed a $240 million MQ-4C drone at the Prince Hassan Air Base in Jordan. How the fuck does that thing cost $250 million? The absolute maximum it should be is $10 million, which is still far too high. No wonder the U.S. is getting its ass handed to it by Iran. It simply cannot compete on volume or price. It's so funny. One fucking drone, $250,000, dude. I mean, it's not funny. It's really, it should anger you. Okay? It should make you super angry when you realize that these fucking bad boys are the reason why you don't have health care. But yes, defense bloat is tremendous because, as I've pointed to a million times over, and I will continue pointing to this, the American military does not manufacture, procure, produce for existential threats. The American military produces things for profit. Okay? The Iranian military, on the other hand, the Iranian defense industry produces things for existential threats. Iran is fighting a war of existence. America's fighting a war at Israel's behest for funsies. That's the problem. And if one side is fighting to survive and the other side is fighting just because that's the only thing they know, then yeah, of course, the side that's fighting to survive is going to win. Just saw you on a Fox News Facebook post where you speak your paragraph about Lindsey Graham being a demonic entity. All the comments agreed with you, lol. Hell yeah. Did you predict Iran's defense would hold up? Yes, I did. It was my biggest fucking lock. Unlike my counterparts on either side of the political spectrum, either side of the political aisle, I, day one, said this was a bad idea and said that this would lead to unbelievable amounts of failure for America. And every single thing that I said happened. Every single thing that I said, even before America went into war, and then certainly during America's military campaign, every single thing that I said was going to happen actually happened. Frame one, baby. Frame one. All my haters can eat shit and cope.
Hand, it flies towards them until it makes contact, at which point it explodes. If it runs out of fuel before spotting a target, it either crashes in the case of the 358, or in the case of the 359, it deploys its parachute, floats safely to the ground where it can be refueled and used again. This loitering feature makes the 358 particularly deadly against things like the MQ-9 Reaper, an American drone that has been used extensively in its wars in the Middle East. Capable of carrying an awesome array of firepower, these things were lethal in the fight against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. But they're also slow-moving and spend a long time loitering over battlefields as well, meaning they're relatively easy for a loitering munition like the 358 to spot. Once the 358 has locked on, the Reapers have few countermeasures to throw it off again, and are relatively easy to catch up with. We now know that the US lost 24 Reapers at a total cost of almost $750 million over Iran during the war. But that's not all, because Iran has also been shipping these weapons to its proxy groups, including the Houthis in Yemen. And they are thought to have taken down at least another 13 Reapers during the American bombing campaign there last year. So that's over $1 billion worth of damage just in Reaper drones. And that's before we come to the 359. While this can take down Reapers, this isn't thought to be its primary purpose. Analysts think this thing is supposed to go after aircraft like helicopters, mid-air refueling jets, and potentially even F-35s. There are rumors that an Apache helicopter, worth around $50 million each, was damaged by one of these in Yemen. And of course, the US lost a KC-135 Stratotanker over Iran. We think that was due to a collision with another refueler because of the damage we saw afterwards. But what caused the tankers to crash into each other in the first place? It could easily have been turbulence, or it might not have been. Then there's the footage of the F-35 being hit. This should have been an almost impossible shot with conventional anti-air missiles because the F-35 is built to be invisible to long-range radar. Most conventional missiles use radar for guidance, and they...
Yeah, it turns out there's one thing that is... There's one thing that's undefeated. It's called your eyes. It's called optics. Yeah, Donald Trump was wrong. It turns out looking at things and seeing it with your own eyes is OP. Donald Trump was wrong. The F-35 is not optically invisible.
Can't hit what they can't see. But the 359 is far from a conventional weapon, and it doesn't use radar. It uses infrared, and the F-35 can't hide from that because its engine gets hot. That means this strike could well have been carried out by a 359. This is Justin Bronk, an expert we've worked with.
If genuine, a pop-up attack with an IR sensor tracking the F-35 from the ground, likely seen flying by day. Iran has small IR SAMs, surface air missiles derived from Soviet AAMs like the R-27 TET. Might also be a Soccer 1-2, 358, 359 loitering surface air missile. Why didn't the F-35 EO, IR, MAWS warn the pilot and deploy flares? Yeah. 150 bones. Holy shit, dude. What is happening? We got juicers in here.
Suggesting that either a 358 or 359 missile could have been responsible. If that turns out to be correct, it will have been a very lucky shot because the F-35 can fly much, much faster than these loitering munitions can. In a straight race, they would have had no hope of catching up with and hitting the jet. But by being in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time, it could have scored a lucky hit. Lucky, but also impressive, because the F-35 is worth north of $100 million each, and is widely regarded as the most advanced fighter jet in the skies today. Taking all of that together then, we can say that what makes the 358 and 359 special is their unusual blending of technologies traditionally used in missiles and drones. Their turbojet engines and missile-shaped bodies make them much faster than drones like the Shahed, which means they're useful as an anti-air weapon, because they can actually catch up to other aircraft and strike them, primarily the Reaper drones, but potentially helicopters, mid-air refuelers, and fighter jets. What makes them so deadly is their ability to loiter. Iran.
Wait, Trump's Thursday speech is going to be even dumber than we thought. MS Now. President Trump's speech on Thursday is slated to address the newly declassified intelligence reports that reveal plans by foreign nations to interfere in the 2020. Stop. Ain't no fucking way. Oh my God. That is fucking amazing. Dude, you live long enough and you fucking Brandonize, dude. Russia. But this time it'll be China-gate. Probably not even China because he loves Xi. But he'll be like, Cuba was trying to interfere, and Iran was trying to interfere in the 2020 and did interfere in the 2020